They built an empire on perfection. A power couple untouchable by scandal. But beneath the glittering surface of the Carter dynasty lies a secret so explosive, it threatens to unravel everything. For years, whispers followed Jay-Z, rumors of a hidden son, a child born long before Blue Ivy, tucked away from the cameras, the fans, and even from Beyoncé herself. But now, those whispers are becoming screams. A court order, long dodged, has finally landed. A DNA test is looming, and the man who claims to be Jay-Z's forgotten child. He's not asking for fame or fortune. He just wants the truth. But what happens when that truth could destroy the legacy of hip-hop's royal family? Why has Jay-Z reportedly gone to such extreme lengths to avoid the test? And how far has Beyoncé allegedly gone to keep this buried in the shadows? As more insiders come forward, and legal documents begin to surface, the Carter's perfect image is starting to crack. And what's underneath might shock the world. This isn't just a story about paternity. It's about power, control, silence, and the price of protecting a billion-dollar brand. And as we peel back the layers, one thing becomes clear. This secret was never meant to see the light of day.
I think the girl like Tasha K. She got a joint Jay-Z son on there.
Oh, his alleged son?
No. You talk to him personally? That's his son.
You think that's his son?
Yeah. You know what I think his son? First of all, Jay-Z offered him money. At first, he offered him bread, like, and everything, but his aunt, this is like his caretaker, didn't like approve of it. She said no. Jay-Z got a lien on her house, all type of shit that was going on. Yeah, the lady put up paperwork and everything with his name on it and all that. I mean, but young boy's so thorough though. He just want a dad. He not trying to get no money. He not trying to do none of that. I mean, that's why. So I told him when he called me 2 years ago. I said, listen, I don't want to be the one to tell your story because they're gonna think I'm trying to catch rep off of it. So let me let you tell your story somewhere else first. I mean, then I could talk about it. But he called me like 2 years ago, telling me like, I said, oh, young boy. He's like, I just want a dad. I don't want no money. I'm already 18. I think he was like 20 something at the time. But something happened to him, and I was like, yo, that sounds kind of weird. He said he was coming out from work, going to work, and it was a gun in his car. Like when he opened the door, he seen the gun. He said he went to go call his man, like, yo, did you leave a gun in my car? His man's like, no. He said, why you on the phone talking to his man? The cops pull up and lock him up. He said, he's telling the cops, no, that's not my gun. He's like, so he went in the building he was in, and they seen that somebody pulled up and put the guns in his car.
Oh.
And pulled off. I said, bro, I don't know nobody in the hood that got guns to just waste like that to do that. I don't know what. He's like, yeah, so like Jay-Z had a gag order against him, like trying to get a gag order and trying to. And my thing is, if that's not my son, I'll just take a test, get over with.
Yeah.
The fact that you dodged it and whatever, to me, I don't.
Before the fame, before the billion-dollar empire, before the polished image, there was a teenage girl named Wanda and a rising rapper named Sean Carter. Long before Beyoncé ever entered the picture, a young woman from Philadelphia claimed she had a brief, life-altering encounter with Jay-Z in the early 90s. She was a teenager. He was in his early 20s, already grinding his way through New York's underground music scene. That encounter, she says, left her pregnant, and the child, born from it. His name is Rimir Satterthwaite. Rimir's story isn't new. In fact, it's been lingering in the shadows of Jay-Z's career for over a decade. But what's changed is the weight behind it. This isn't just a rumor anymore. It's a legal case with a paper trail, sworn affidavits, and mounting pressure. Wanda, before her passing, signed a notarized affidavit stating that Jay-Z was Rimir's biological father. That document, combined with years of court filings, witness testimony, and now a looming DNA test, is what's finally bringing this long-buried truth to the surface. Growing up, Rimir believed another man was his father, Robert, the one who signed his birth certificate. But even Robert allegedly knew the child wasn't his. According to reports, he signed the certificate to help Wanda qualify for public assistance, and she didn't even know until later. It wasn't until Rimir turned 8 that Wanda sat him down and told him the truth. Jay-Z was his real father, and ever since that moment, Rimir's life changed forever. He never asked for money. He didn't come with tabloid headlines or wild accusations. In fact, by all accounts, Rimir just wanted a relationship with the man he believed was his dad. But the more he reached out, the more the walls went up. Doors closed. Conversations stopped. And soon, the silence became deafening. To most people, Jay-Z is untouchable. A businessman, a husband, a father. But to Rimir, he's just a man who's been avoiding a simple question for over a decade. Are you my father? And that question, no matter how uncomfortable, isn't going away. The timing, the documents, the details, everything started pointing toward a deeper truth. But even as evidence began stacking up, Jay-Z and his legal team reportedly did everything they could to shut it down. What started as a quiet personal journey for one man began morphing into a full-blown legal battle with one of the most powerful names in entertainment, and it all began with a mother's dying wish to give her son the truth she believed he deserved. If you had nothing to hide, why run? That's the question Ramir and his supporters have been asking for over a decade. Because ever since the claim of paternity first emerged, Jay-Z hasn't responded with clarity. He's responded with avoidance. Not once, but repeatedly, across multiple courts, jurisdictions, and legal challenges. And every time Ramir got close to an answer, something, or someone, slammed the door shut. Back in 2014, with help from his legal guardian Lily, Ramir filed a civil lawsuit against Jay-Z in New Jersey, hoping to force a DNA test. Simple enough, right? But instead of agreeing to it and putting the matter to rest, Jay-Z's legal team began playing a game of jurisdictional dodgeball. First, they claimed he didn't live in New Jersey. Then they argued the court didn't have the right to hear the case at all. Every technicality was used to keep the test from happening. It wasn't about the truth, it was about buying time. Behind closed doors, there were whispers of gag orders, sealed filings, and legal threats. Even as public pressure built, Jay-Z refused to speak on the matter, choosing instead to let his lawyers do the heavy lifting, and according to Ramir's team, there were constant roadblocks, missing paperwork, denied motions, and judges who seemed unwilling to challenge the star power of Sean Carter. And it didn't stop in New Jersey. The case ping-ponged between Pennsylvania and New Jersey for years. Jurisdiction battles dragged on. At one point, a New Jersey judge even prohibited Ramir, his mother, and godmother from filing any new legal claims in the state unless they were first approved by the court. Think about that. A young man trying to establish paternity had to fight not just a billionaire, but a system that seemed designed to protect him. Then came the rumors of influence. Allegations that Jay-Z's team may have had private communications with Ramir's own lawyers, claims that those attorneys, the very people meant to represent Ramir, had sabotaged the case through procedural mistakes. Whether intentional or not, those mistakes gutted the lawsuit's momentum. The Philadelphia court eventually dismissed the case, and with it, Ramir's hope for justice started to slip away. Again, but even after all of that, Ramir didn't give up. He kept filing, kept pushing, kept asking the same simple question: why won't Jay-Z just take the test? If you're not his father, why fight this for over a decade? Why spend more time and money avoiding the truth than simply confronting it? And that's where the story gets darker. Because some believe the refusal isn't just about denying a connection, it's about what that connection might reveal. Not just that Jay-Z had a child, but that the child's mother was a minor when it happened. A claim that, if proven, wouldn't just damage his legacy, it could destroy it. So instead of addressing the claim head-on, Jay-Z turned to the one thing more powerful than denial: silence. No interviews, no statements, no comments, just a wall of lawyers, a decade of dodging, and a trail of shattered attempts at closure. But silence doesn't make the truth disappear. It just makes it louder. For years, Beyoncé has cultivated an image of divine perfection, a flawless icon of music, motherhood, and marriage. But according to multiple insiders, that image may have come at a cost. Because as Ramir's battle for recognition intensified, so too did whispers that Beyoncé wasn't just a bystander in the background. She was an active participant in keeping the story buried. Let's be clear. Beyoncé never made public statements about Ramir, but according to people close to the situation, she allegedly played a key role in keeping the scandal from exploding. One source even claimed she once brushed off the issue entirely, allegedly saying, "Go away, little boy." That phrase, chilling in its dismissal, reportedly haunted Ramir and those trying to help him. Whether she said it or not, it symbolizes what many believe: this wasn't just Jay-Z's secret, it was theirs. Why would Beyoncé involve herself in this at all? Simple. Brand protection. The Carters aren't just musicians. They are a global brand, a billion-dollar dynasty. Every tour, every endorsement, every perfectly staged family photos relies on one thing: control. Control of narrative. Control of image, and above all, control of legacy. A child born out of wedlock, with claims tied to statutory concerns. That's the kind of truth that fractures legacies. And for Beyoncé, whose career was built on precision and privacy, that truth was a threat, not just to her reputation, but to the world she built with Jay-Z. A world where everything is calculated, polished, and untouchable. Insiders claim Beyoncé allegedly encouraged Jay-Z to settle the issue quietly, not to resolve it, but to contain it. And when attempts at silence failed, the strategy reportedly shifted to discrediting those behind the claims, including Rimmer's godmother and even his late mother, Wanda. It wasn't just legal, it was personal. Think about it. Beyoncé has faced years of rumors, marital problems, infidelity, even surrogacy, conspiracies. And every single time, she met those rumors with strategic silence. Never confirmation. Never denial. Just flawless public appearances, Grammy performances, and curated Instagram drops. But the Ramir situation was different. Because this time, the evidence wasn't tabloid fluff, it was legal. This time, the story wasn't about speculation, it was about truth. And that truth came with real consequences. Sources close to the family say the pressure has taken its toll. That Beyoncé has privately battled depression, mental health struggles, and even alcohol issues. All allegedly triggered by the years of keeping up appearances. The weight of the secret, combined with the public's growing suspicion, became a burden too heavy to carry. One insider went as far as saying, "This isn't about denying a son. This is about protecting an empire that was never meant to crack." But cracks are forming. And the silence. It's no longer working. Fans are noticing Beyoncé's drastic changes in appearance, her distant demeanor, the unusual absence of their son from public life. It's subtle, but it's there. And when you look closely, the illusion starts to blur. So now the question becomes, how much longer can Beyoncé hold it together? Because if this story truly blows open, if the DNA confirms what Ramir's been saying all along, it won't just be Jay-Z who falls under scrutiny, it'll be Beyoncé too. And the question will shift from what did she know, to how far did she go to keep it hidden? Take away the headlines, the legal filings, the celebrity names. And what's left is a young man who just wanted a father. From the beginning, Ramir Satterthwaite never approached this story like someone chasing clout or cash. In fact, his quiet demeanor and consistent message over the years tell a much different story. One grounded not in revenge, but in reclamation. Reclaiming his identity. Reclaiming the truth about where he came from. And most of all, reclaiming the legacy of his mother, Wanda, whose last breath was spent fighting for her son's recognition. Ramir wasn't born into luxury. He worked 2 jobs, lived a modest life, and carried the weight of a story too big for most people to bear. From a young age, he knew something didn't add up. And when his mother finally revealed the truth, that Jay-Z was allegedly his father, everything shifted. The confusion, the anger, the pain. All made worse by the complete silence coming from the other side. But it wasn't about money. That's the part people always get wrong. Ramir repeatedly said he didn't want financial support. He wasn't asking to be added to a will or included in a trust. He wasn't even asking for a relationship, necessarily. He just wanted acknowledgement, validation. To look someone in the eye and say, "You know me. You were there. You remember." Because when someone denies your existence, it doesn't just erase your name, it erases your worth. The tragedy of this story is how deeply personal it is, and how impersonal it became. Ramir didn't want headlines. He didn't want to sue the courts. He didn't want to be dragged into the public spotlight and dissected by strangers. But the deeper he dug, the more resistance he faced. Roadblocks, dismissals, intimidation. At one point, a gun was allegedly planted in his car, and he was arrested, a moment that left him traumatized and suspicious of how far some forces might go to silence him. In his own words, Ramir once said, "I'm not trying to get rich off this. I just want to know where I come from. I just want to know who I am." And that's what makes this story hit harder than most celebrity scandals, because underneath the drama is a broken lineage, a missing identity, and a young man who spent his life fighting a giant just to be seen. Even when he tried a private DNA test with a woman rumored to be another one of Jay-Z's children, the results were ... inconclusive. The test was sent, the sample was returned. And then, nothing, no follow-up, no explanation, just more silence. Over time, the emotional cost became heavier. Ramir's circle grew smaller. Friends distanced themselves. Legal costs piled up. And still, he kept pushing forward. Not because he wanted to destroy anyone, but because he couldn't bear the thought of his mother dying in vain. Wanda died trying to fight for her son. On the phone with a judge, begging the system to listen. Demanding the truth. Her death was not peaceful. It was a moment of desperation, frustration, and heartbreak. And that's what drives Ramier, not fame, not clout, not revenge. Just the need to clear his mother's name and honor her truth. And yet, even with a decade of emotional trauma, broken promises, and legal sabotage, he still hasn't gotten an answer. But now, with a court-ordered DNA test looming, it seems he may finally be on the brink of closure. Or, at the very least, confirmation. And what that test reveals won't just impact R.Y. Mir. It could redefine the Carter legacy forever.
But I'm letting y'all know, it is not all roses and fairies in the Carter household. Beyoncé has also dealt with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of depression, allegedly alcoholism, allegedly. And I said that real low. If you caught it, you caught it. If you didn't, you didn't. Allegedly. But nonetheless, yeah, we're seeing the decline of this marriage/relationship. And when his tea come out, I really want to know how they gonna navigate this. Look at her during the Fantasia performance. She looked weird and skinny. Where you get all, I can't tell you where I get all the spicy tea. Allegedly. And let me say this too, between the stress, the money, the spiritual work, it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. Why do they? I don't want to talk about nobody's kids. You said, why do they never show the son? Because I can't. They don't really show the son much. They focus mostly on Blue or Rumi because they know that the internet is a really cruel place. They know that people are really cruel, and so they would just rather not. And that's all I can say.
And if this thing with Ramier were to come out, it would spell big, big trouble for the Carters.
What I've heard about them as a couple is that they've been living separate lives for a very long time. So they together, but they living separate. And part of the reason why they're already living separate lives, and we may actually see one of the biggest divorces in Hollywood, is because Jay-Z is up next to be exposed. And it's only so much of these stories that Jay-Z can, he can pay off or he can block. He won't be able to stop this. And she knows it and he knows it too. As far as who's gonna be the breakout victim / story, I don't know. Yeah, I might have to ask Jason Lee. I don't know. But I'm just letting you know that once that comes out and Jay-Z is exposed for his nefarious past, you're going to see Beyoncé divorce him. Okay? And she may or may not do an interview, but you're going to, their publicist is going to release something. She's going to say, oh, the Carters have been separated for some time. They built this beautiful life, blah, 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 blah. Now, before all this happens, we may get another tour. We may get another album out of both of them. I don't know, because at the end of the day, they about their money first. They're going to do what's best for business first. As far as Beyonce is concerned, do she love him? I mean, he's really all that she knows. She was ready to leave him years ago, but the industry it's different. And I don't want to say it's an Illuminati contract because I don't know how the Illuminati get down. I really don't know. And I'm not going to lie to you and say I do. But essentially, she's been stuck, right? But I believe this is going to be her chance to get out. And according to what I heard, if certain things that I can't even speak on come out, she gone. She's gonna protect her image. All right. And this, I mean, I don't know what would be the bigger divorce, Will and Jada or Beyonce and Jay-Z. But just know everybody's gonna be talking about it. TMZ's gonna talk about it first, and we're gonna be talking about it probably for 6 months.
By now, one thing should be clear. This story was never just about a paternity test. It became a case study in how power protects itself, and the deeper Ramier pushed, the more he uncovered a tangled web of legal obstructions, gag orders, and, perhaps most disturbingly, silence from the very people meant to help him. In 2014, when Ramier and his legal guardian Lily Coley filed a civil lawsuit against Jay-Z, it seemed like the case might finally force the rapper to take a DNA test. But instead of answers, they were met with what can only be described as an orchestrated shutdown. First came the technical dismissals, claims of improper filings, lack of jurisdiction, and vague procedural errors that judges used to toss out the case. But the pattern was too consistent to ignore. Mistake after mistake, delay after delay, always in Jay-Z's favor. Ramier's legal team began to suspect that something deeper was going on, that even their own attorneys might not be fully on their side. And then came the lawsuits, not against Jay-Z, but against the courts themselves. Yes, you heard that right. Ramier, his godmother, and his late mother's estate eventually sued the New Jersey Supreme Court and several judges across 2 states. Their claim, that justice was never actually on the table. That judges were either biased, manipulated, or outright obstructive in allowing this case to be heard fairly. One judge even issued an order prohibiting Ramier and his guardian from filing anything new in the state of New Jersey without first getting court approval, essentially gagging them from continuing the legal fight. Let that sink in. The people trying to establish the truth were the ones being silenced, not the billionaire, not the lawyers with unlimited resources, but the young man working 2 jobs who just wanted answers. Behind the scenes, there were rumors of payoffs, sealed documents, and private meetings between Jay-Z's legal team and court insiders. Even some of the lawyers allegedly hired to help Ramier were later accused of having private communications with Jay-Z's attorneys, potentially compromising the case from the inside. Whether intentional or not, the result was the same: delay, derailment, and denial. And what about the media? For a story this explosive, a global superstar potentially hiding a child for decades, the coverage has been oddly quiet. Major outlets barely touched it. Even when the Daily Mail broke a version of the story years ago, it barely made a ripple. Why? According to multiple commentators, the answer is access. The entertainment media machine thrives on relationships, exclusive interviews, red carpet invites, early access to albums and appearances, and no one wants to get blacklisted by the Carters. In fact, insiders claim many outlets were explicitly told not to touch the story, or risk losing future access to Beyoncé and Jay-Z's brand. It's a chilling reminder of how control of the narrative works in the modern era. Not by proving your innocence, but by silencing the conversation before it begins. And in this silence, one man's story was buried under years of red tape, legal threats, and whispered intimidation. Even when Rimmer's case reached a point where it could have broken wide open, something always seemed to pull it back into the shadows. But the truth has a way of surfacing, even when the most powerful people in the industry try to drown it. Because, now, despite years of suppression, the courts have finally ordered what Ramier's been asking for all along: a DNA test. And if that test proves what he's been saying for over a decade, no gag order, no sealed file, no legal firewall will be able to protect the empire Jay-Z and Beyoncé built. When you're one of the most powerful figures in music, sometimes you don't respond to accusations with press conferences or court statements. You do it through bars. And Jay-Z, he's no stranger to lacing his lyrics with layered messages. But when fans started listening closer, some wondered, was he rapping about Ramier all along? In his track Heard About Us, Jay-Z drops a line that sent shockwaves through the online rumor mill: Billie Jean in his prime for the 1000th time. The kid ain't mine. A clever flip of Michael Jackson's infamous denial. But in this case, it felt pointed, almost personal. Was this just a metaphor? A casual reference to a past scandal? Or was it a lyrical middle finger to a young man who'd been seeking the truth for over a decade? That wasn't the only line raising eyebrows. On the same song, he raps, "Every day I'm getting sued. I show up to court without a suit." Again, a casual boast or a direct jab? Because Jay-Z has, in fact, been in and out of courtrooms for years, some of which were tied directly to the Ramiere case. Fans and critics alike began speculating. Was this Jay's way of addressing the issue without ever naming names? But here's where it gets deeper. While Jay-Z appears to dismiss the accusations in his music, he still refused to take a DNA test for over a decade. If it's not your son, and if you're confident in the truth, why not just take the test and shut it down forever? Instead, the public got rhymes. Rhymes crafted for plausible deniability, rhymes with just enough ambiguity to entertain without confirming. It's genius in its subtlety, and brutal in its coldness. And Ramiere, he heard those lyrics. He knew exactly who they were meant for. Imagine dedicating your life to finding the truth about your father, and then hearing your rejection become a catchy chorus in front of millions. It wasn't just denial. It was artful erasure. This wasn't the first time Jay-Z used music as a weapon or shield. He did it with Lemonade, when Beyoncé aired their marital struggles through poetic visuals and heartbreak anthems. He responded with 444, an apology album that admitted infidelity and personal failure, but again, on his own terms. But in the case of Ramiere, there was no apology, no acknowledgement. Just clever lines, layered metaphors, and a consistent silence in interviews. The most public man in hip-hop suddenly had nothing to say. Some saw it as strength. Others saw it as cowardice. And now, with a court finally ordering a real DNA test, those lyrics may come back to haunt him. Because denying a son in a song is one thing, but denying a son to a court under oath, that's a whole different beat. To understand how this entire saga began, you have to go back, way back, to a time when Jay-Z wasn't yet a mogul, and Beyoncé was still years away from entering the picture. It was the early 1990s. A young woman named Wanda met Sean Carter. In Philadelphia, she was a teenager. He was in his early 20s. According to Wanda's sworn affidavit, their encounter was brief, but intimate. She became pregnant shortly afterward, and from that moment forward, everything changed. Wanda didn't have Jay-Z's real name. She didn't have his number. He was already starting to focus on his music career, moving between cities, building his brand. He disappeared from her life as quickly as he'd entered it. Left to raise a child alone, Wanda did what she thought was best, and leaned on someone else for help. That someone was Robert Graves, her then partner. He wasn't the biological father. He knew it. Wanda knew it. But he signed Ramiere's birth certificate, anyway. Why? According to reports, it may have been a desperate attempt to help Wanda qualify for public assistance. A kind act under harsh circumstances. But that single decision created a legal smokescreen that would haunt Ramiere's case for years. It wasn't until Ramiere turned 8 that Wanda sat him down and told him the truth, that Jay-Z was his biological father. And even then, she didn't go public. She didn't call tabloids or file lawsuits. She simply told her son what she believed he deserved to know. The truth about where he came from. Years passed, but Wanda never let go of that truth. Even as her health declined, she remained adamant about getting recognition for her son. Before she died, she signed a notarized affidavit, a legal document stating under oath that Sean Corey Carter was the father of her child. That paper, short, direct, and chilling in its clarity, would become the foundation of Ramiere's legal battle. But that foundation wasn't enough. Because Robert had signed the birth certificate, courts kept defaulting to what was on paper. They saw Robert as the legal father, despite his own reported acknowledgement that he wasn't biologically connected to the boy. In the eyes of the system, the facts didn't align with the documentation. And that was all Jay-Z's legal team needed to create reasonable doubt. Still, the affidavit haunted the case like a shadow. A dying mother's final declaration. A mother who, according to those close to her, passed away while on the phone with a judge, begging them to take her petition seriously. She died mid-fight, heartbroken, unheard. And it wasn't just Wanda's voice that was silenced. The courts didn't want the case. Every time Ramiere and his godmother tried to push forward, they were told the same thing. Wrong state, wrong process, wrong paperwork. And when they tried to correct the mistakes, the system kept shifting the goalposts. The timeline tells a damning story. Early 1990s, Wanda meets Jay-Z 1993. Ramiere is born 2001. Wanda tells Ramiere the truth 2009 to 2013. Wanda's health declines 2014. Wanda dies, but leaves behind the affidavit 2014 to 2023. Legal battles erupt across 2 states. 2023. court finally orders DNA testing over 30 years, 3 decades of silence, resistance, and legal war. All because one mother wanted the truth acknowledged, and one son wanted his name reclaimed. The question now isn't whether the timeline makes sense, it's whether the truth it reveals will ever be allowed to come to light. At the center of this story is a question so simple, it's almost tragic. What does it cost to tell the truth? For Ramir Satterthwaite, it cost his childhood, his peace, and decades of chasing a ghost through courtrooms and closed doors. For Wanda, it cost her final breath, dying while pleading with a judge to let her son be heard. For the Carters, the cost is still being calculated, but it's rising by the day, because if the DNA test confirms what so many believe, it won't just expose a long-hidden son, it will expose how power bends truth, how image trumps accountability, and how even in a world obsessed with transparency, some secrets remain protected. Until they're not. Jay-Z once rapped, "The truth in my verses, versus your metaphors about what your life is really like." But what happens when the truth no longer fits the brand? This isn't just about paternity. It's about what we allow the powerful to hide. About the kids who grow up in the shadows while the world applauds perfection. About the silence that screams louder than any lyric. And now, after years of silence, a test is coming. One that doesn't care about Grammy wins, album sales, or magazine covers. One that will speak plainly, in black and white. Yes or no, father or fraud. If the test confirms Ramir's claim, history won't remember this as a scandal, it will remember it as a cover-up. A mother's dying truth. A son's fight for identity. And a billion-dollar dynasty that cracked not under the weight of lies, but under the quiet persistence of one man who refused to disappear, because in the end, you can erase someone from photos. You can silence them in court. You can bury them beneath headlines and distractions. But you can't outrun DNA.